I am Pamela, Private Eye. I make a living off of people's curiosity. So whether that is, and I've done it for over 30 years, so whether that's following someone that thinks their spouse is cheating on them, which they usually are, just so you know, or it's the insurance company and I'm investigating an insurance claim to find out if you're actually injured or if you're lifting engines out of trucks. So my job, I wear disguises. I have all kinds of disguises in my car so I can change it in a minute's notice. But in my field, what I wanted to do was to be able to go deep into it, and it took a while, but one of my goals was to do murder cases. And then I got to a place where I was doing murder cases, and then I was doing capital murder. And I don't know if you know that, but capital murder is when someone has done something so horrible that they're facing the death penalty. And my very first capital murder case was a guy named Charlie. Charlie had 0 criminal record. I literally had a bigger criminal record than Charlie because I had speeding tickets. He went from no speeding tickets, nothing on his record whatsoever, to the state of Utah talking about executing him. And not only talking about it, but charging him with it. I first learned of Charlie's case. It was the lead story in the news. And I'd watched it that night, and he had stabbed his younger, beautiful trophy wife in the neck with a screwdriver in front of the courthouse. And I saw that, and I literally said, that guy is a monster. I would hate to be on his defense team. I would hate to have to defend that behavior. And the next morning, my phone rings, and it's the top lawyer in the state, defense lawyer in the state of Utah. And he says, Pamela, I need your help. And I was curious. I'd always wanted to do a capital case. I don't know if you guys have, but I always wanted to sit across from that person that done something so horrible and just have a conversation and say, man, how did you get to that place? Because I really believe the most Christ-like thing we can do is not to just sit by someone's side when things are good, but to sit by their side when they're bad. And doing criminal defense work, I get to do that every day. I'm so lucky. So with Charlie, and I believe in the death penalty for certain crimes. I think there's a time that, and we could debate about that forever, but I have so little time. So I've always believed in that. The attorney that I was working for on this case did not, however, believe in the death penalty. And so my job on the case was to investigate the capital phase, meaning since we knew he did it because it was in front of the courthouse, there's really no question there. So the question was, should this man be executed? And my job was to find out, is there any reason he shouldn't be? And I started out, remember, saying he's a monster. I'm with it. This guy should be executed. So my first meeting with Charlie was at the jail, of course, because he was in custody. And I'm in and out of jail all the time, not because I do bad things. You'd be surprised how hard it is to get in if you haven't committed a crime. So as a PI, I always go in. I have a professional booth. I meet with clients, and this client was different. When I went to see Charlie, he was in the health service section. I'd never been to that section. I didn't even know they had one. And what I learned was Charlie was there because he had 2 suicide attempts. Charlie really hated himself for what he had done. And so when they brought Charlie to me, he said, they brought him out. Of course, he's wearing the orange jail uniform, and he's got inmate written down his leg, so we know who he belongs to. And he was 52 years old, but he looked much older than that. And I see that a lot in this work. And it literally can be sometimes for something that just happened, and it changes someone's appearance. Something so dark, so awful can change us so quickly. And so I didn't know if that's what the situation was. He was really not a very attractive man. He had very dated glasses, very crooked teeth, only a few hairs on top of his head, which I'm not saying anything bad about you bald guys, but Charlie was a self-made multimillionaire. So he had enough money, he could have fixed any of those things. So that wasn't important to him, obviously. And so as I started talking to him, and I mean, it's not just once. As I prepare a case, I'm in there all the time, and I'm interviewing. I build the case out, and I interview everyone that I can. And what I learned about Charlie was, there were some really interesting things about Charlie. He was, with a high school education, he was working for the second largest construction company in the world as a project manager. And so the people under him, he had about 1,000 engineers that worked underneath him. And I interviewed a bunch of them, and what was fascinating to me was that, like everyone said, Charlie made me who I am. He made my career. I love Charlie. Wow, that's the guy that I was calling monster. Like, okay. And what we learned, what I learned through my investigation, because the attorney doesn't learn anything until I tell him, because that's my job, to find out, to meet with the client and to learn everything that I can. Charlie, because of his work, with the big company, he would be gone a lot. He would be gone for 3 weeks at a time and then come home for 10 days. His wife decided, well, that didn't work for her. So he got home one time from a work trip, and she said, Charlie, I want a divorce, I'm done. And he loved her so much, he said, I will quit. Right now, he wrote his letter of resignation, he resigned. He said, I want to save our marriage. She said, it's too late. And not only am I divorcing you, I'm taking you for everything you've got. And Charlie had a lot. And but aside from the stuff, he was mostly distraught over losing her. He'd stopped eating, he stopped sleeping. He hadn't slept more than a few minutes from that moment on until the time of the murder. And the murder, I told you, it happened at the courthouse. She was right. The judge had temporarily granted her the house, 2/3 of his income, rent, all the money from rental properties they had. He had really gotten hammered on that first round. He was absolutely distraught. And that's when all of that happened. We don't have time to get into the details of it. But another fascinating part with Charlie, I was never afraid of Charlie. I've had a couple clients I've been afraid of. What's interesting, most people, even people that do horrible things, I really believe most people are really not bad. They get in a bad spot, they'll do some horrible things. I've only had really one client that I'd say was evil, and I didn't want to make you guys all want to kill yourselves after the story, so I'm not telling that. But Charlie, I went to see Charlie one time, and he came out, and he didn't have his glasses on even, and they brought him to me shackled and handcuffed, and he had a white bandage on his neck. And I said, oh no, Charlie, what did you do? And I couldn't believe that I had changed from thinking he was such a monster that I cared. I said, Charlie, what happened? You did something bad. And he said, I did. When they handed out the razors this morning, I took it out. And I cut my throat. And the doctor said I almost got there, but I didn't get it done. They rushed me to the hospital. And as we were talking, the bandage started seeping with blood. And I said, and he was shackled. And so when he was crying, telling me, I can't live with what I've done. I killed the person that I loved the most in the world. And I can't live like that. Her family had sued him civilly to get his money. And he said, there were some things I really learned that I really felt a lot of respect for Charlie about. He said, you don't have to sue me, I'll just give you everything. He signed over everything he had to her family. Charlie was a voracious reader. He read every book they had in the library at the jail. I had to order more books so that he would have something to read. And so I found myself switching from not caring if this guy was executed to saying, Charlie, we've got to keep you alive. And he said, what is there to live for? He was in his 50s. I'm going to go to prison forever if they don't he said, but I want to be executed. And I said, Charlie, like you can help all the men in prison. You can teach them because the people that work for you love you. And he wasn't really buying that sales pitch. And I had We worked out a deal for Charlie. They took the death penalty off the table. We took the plea. We got him to take the plea. He went to prison. And I'd said to a friend, you know, I need to go see Charlie in prison because I want him to know I really do care. This isn't just a job. We are people. We're all connected. And I still care. And I got busy. It's hard to get in the prison. You think it's hard to get in jail? Try getting in prison. It's just a lot of red tape, and so I didn't do it. And I was driving down the road, and an announcement came over the radio that Charlie Miller had hanged himself at the Utah State Prison. And I pulled over, and tears just rolled down my face. We all do bad things. We all, not to that level, but what I learned is we're all connected, and when we learn someone's story, we care. I don't agree with what he did, but we care. And that's probably the most beautiful thing I've got out of being a PI was to learn that once we hear their story, which is why I love this whole idea, but we're all connected. Thanks.